Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. She was looking kind of dumb with her finger and her thumb in the shape of an L on her forehead. Well,
this podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back to another edition of Making Mount Rushmore here on the PTB Pop Experience. I am your host and moderator, Steve Riddle, and we have a great show on tap today. It's the last one of 2022, and we are sure to go out with a bang here as we have a great, like I said, great series of topics to cover here. And I, of course, never get to do this alone. I have a great trio of gentlemen on with me. They've all been on before, so you are pretty familiar with them, so I will go ahead and bring them in. First, you can usually hear this gentleman on the great show Greetings from Allentown, and he is starting to slowly become a good regular here on the Pop Experience. He's started getting on the Video Jukebox Song of the Day, and as well as the show, it is Mr. Keith Langston. Keith, how are you, sir?
I am doing just great, Steve. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. It's good to see you getting your, as I said, you're now getting your feet wet on the Video Jukebox, and lots of great. Those are some great episodes you've done so far.
Oh, thank you very much. I do enjoy that. It's always it's a fun little trip down memory lane with some of the selections that I've been given, so that I've been getting. So yeah, I look forward to keep adding on to that list.
Yeah, definitely. Also with us today, he is, of course, the host of Extreme Resurrection over on the PTB Wrestling feed, which I am proud to be his co-host on that on that show. It is my good friend James Gruenberg. Grooney, how are you, sir?
I am doing well. How's everyone else doing?
Doing good. Good to have you come back for another episode.
Yeah. You know, this one was sort of hard for me, but I narrowed it down, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, you know, once the ideas started popping through, I was like, oh, okay. So, you know, hopefully some match others, or, you know, otherwise we grew up in different time zones. So we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it will be interesting. And finally joining us here, it's been a while since he's been on, exactly 1 year, as I think we talked about off air. But you can hear him every week here on the Pop Feed as 1/3 of the great show It Was the Thing on TV. It is Mr. Chico Alexander. Chico, how are you, sir?
Doing well. Hope you are.
I'm doing good. It's good to have you back.
It's good to be back, and if I may say so, merry, merry, happy, happy, dilly, dilly, and yeah.
Wiki, wiki.
That's wiki.
Wiki. Yeah. All right. Well, as I said, we are in for a great episode today because we are going to be delving into movies, specifically animated movies. Of course, most of us know, this year on the PTB Facebook page, we ran our giant tournament to determine the greatest animated film of all time, which was won ultimately by The Lion King. I thought it was definitely a proper choice there. So I decided when it comes to animated films, obviously everyone first thinks of Disney and Pixar. So I decided that we are going to be excluding those films because they obviously can constitute their own Mount Rushmores down the line here. So we are going to be looking today at non-Disney and Pixar animated films. So films basically from like DreamWorks and Sony Pictures Animations, Warner Brothers, classics. You know, anything that you can think of that is not a Disney or a Pixar film is pretty much on the table. And we have some great films here that we're going to talk about today. So Keith, we're going to go ahead and start off with you. Give us the first movie on your Mount Rushmore of non-Disney Pixar animated films.
Well, Steve, I will say that this was, as I was going through the list, and what I kind of did is I went to Wikipedia, I put in list of animated films, and I got every animated film ever from like 1940s all the way up through pretty much this year, 2022. it was what a experience going through like memory lane. I was going, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. And you know, it's funny you say that Disney and Pixar could be their own Mount Rushmores. You ain't lying. But I mean, when you start looking at everything else that came out, there was one film above all that I felt was the George Washington, the cornerstone of my Mount Rushmore for animated movies. And it's really I feel it's the first one that really took it to Pixar and Disney as far as that CGI animation, and that's Shrek, the first Shrek from 2001. I think DreamWorks just killed it with this, and it's, like I said, it kind of really put them on the map as being a competitor to Pixar, and that's why I think it's a juggernaut. It's spawned three more sequels, and then I think a couple of another couple TV shows, and then a spin-off series and stuff. So I think Shrek 2001 DreamWorks is my number one pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. And before I continue, I do want to apologize. We actually had two other gentlemen that wanted to join us today, but we're not able to. That's Mr. Rob Kilner as well as Mr. Andy Atherton. But they did send in some lists as well so that I can read them off air. And I say that because Andy also had Shrek on his Mount Rushmore.
Nice.
Yes, and you're exactly right. I mean, when it came out in 2001, it was, like you said, just an absolute juggernaut, and it came out really at the right time because, Disney was kind of starting to kind of dip down a bit throughout the 2000s, and while Pixar obviously was starting to continue to grow, this was a great film to come out for DreamWorks, and it really put them on the map. And it, like you said, spawned three more films, spawned a couple TV series. Puss in Boots eventually got his own spinoff, and as even to today, I mean, it's still just as relevant today as it was back in 2001 when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned, the tournament, the animated tournament. This was actually the film that went up against Lion King in the finals, and I thought it was definitely a worthy opponent for the Lion King. And also, historically, it was the first film to basically win Best Animated Picture at the Academy Awards. So, it has that going for it. So, Gruny, do you have anything else to say about Shrek?
This one, Shrek slipped my mind. While I was a fan of it, it just didn't make my list. And I'm actually shocked at myself. I was like, how could I forget about Shrek? Mike Myers and, the whole cast really makes that. The whole cast really makes that movie. But, some of the dialogue with Shrek and Donkey is funny. When he's crossing the bridge and his Shrek goes, "Oh, you don't like when I do that?" And he just starts doing it more and more. And he's like, "Stop it, stop it." So Shrek just really, really funny movie. It just slipped my mind, and I did not have it on the list. So I apologize in advance.
That's okay. Every time it seems like we go through these lists, there's always that one that we forget about, and then we kick ourselves when we didn't put it on at the end. Chico, do you have anything else to say about Shrek?
Shrek is a pretty decent film. I like the way it was smartly written. I like the way it was smartly animated. It just created this big old universe, and it created one of the most lauded franchises of the 2000s to the 2010s. It's really memorable for everybody, actually, not just kids, but everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely agree with that. All right, well, Gruny, we'll move on to you. Give us the first entry on your Mount Rushmore of non-Disney Pixar animated films.
So growing up, Pokemon was the show to watch. You collected all the cards and stuff. And when they announced that there was going to be a movie, kids in my generation, we were like, what? There's going to be a Pokemon movie? So the first one on my list is Pokemon, the first movie, obviously. When this came out, everybody wanted to see it, everybody did. We had the Pokemon cards. We watched the Pokemon TV show. We watched the trainer Ash get all 8 badges. But this one was called, it's either called Pokemon the First Movie or it's Pokemon the First Movie Mewtwo Strikes Back. That's what the movie is based off of. And this movie was epic. It's like Pokemon versus Pokemon, like this huge battle that Mewtwo wants to like take over the world. And for like someone who really enjoyed Pokemon growing up, this movie was hands down really, really good for my generation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I remember also when the film came out, because I myself was I remember watching the original Pokemon series on TV, so it was definitely cool to see it on the big screen. Of course, it was paired up with the I think it was like the Pikachu's Vacation, where all the Pikachu and all the Pokemon go on like this vacation to this island. So it was a nice little like carry on to the film. And then like you said, yeah, there's just seeing Mewtwo and the battle at the end with his cloned Pokemon against the original Pokemon. Just definitely it resonated, I think, with a lot of fans at the time. So definitely a good little pick there, James. Chico, do you have anything else to say about Pokemon the first movie?
Oh God, what don't I have to say about Pokemon the first movie? First of all, I get why it was only an hour, because it's basically a glorified episode of the first season of Pokemon, but it is just one of those really well thought out stories, and it just goes into so much details about the whole backstory of Mewtwo and his deal with everybody who comes into contact with him. And obviously it's a story of redemption as Mewtwo decides that he is going to basically break Team Rocket's hold over him and go and carve out his own destiny, much in the same way that Ash is going to carve out his destiny in the Pokemon franchise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Keith, do you have anything else to say about Pokemon the first movie?
I did not see the first Pokemon movie. Pokemon was kind of past I think I was past the time when that was a huge thing. So I will sit this one out. I don't have an opinion either way, but I trust both Chico and Grooney there and what their opinions are. So I will go with them.
That is a very big mistake to make, sir. Trusting my opinion on anything.
All right. Well, we're going to see if that trust is off or not, because now we're going to go ahead to Chico. Give us the first entry on your Mount Rushmore of non-Disney Pixar animated films.
Okay, my first one is actually, it actually came out in a moment where Disney seemed like it was at its most vulnerable, and a Disney alumnus decided to take a few friends and strike out on his own and create this, which ended up being a bit of a passion project, and it's actually set the tone for later success for him. It's Don Bluth's first film, The Secret of NIMH, is my first entry into my Mount Rushmore. And yes, it was rejected by Disney for being too dark, but it almost had to be too dark to do justice to the actual story. And that just set the template for Don Bluth films down the line. Is like, okay, do not let the fact that it's too dark or too bright or too whatever get in the way of telling a vibrant story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know Rob had this on his Mount Rushmore as well, and he sent in, like you said, Don Bluth had wanted to do it with Disney, but they rejected it. So it was around the time when Disney was doing The Fox and the Hound, and we talked about this when we did, when me, Andy, and Miranda did Fox and the Hound on Pop Goes the Classics, because that's when Don Bluth and like 25 animators walked out and ended up forming their own company, who would go on, like you said, to become pretty much the chief competition of Disney throughout the 80s and the early 90s. And I can't say this is a film I don't think I've seen in its entirety. I might have seen bits and pieces here and there. It's one that I definitely want to go back to because I've heard a lot of really good things about it, and it's one that I definitely want to check out down the line. Keith, I know you had this on your Mount Rushmore as well.
I did, yes. And I will tell you that growing up, Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of NIMH, the book itself, was a really important book growing up for me. I love, as Chico was saying, the darkness of it. I mean, just the realism of the whole story itself. I mean, it's a great book overall, and then to turn it into a film like this. And the reason why I went with this is really because I agree with Chico that this was really the breakout movie for Don Bluth and his kind of his level of animation. I mean, you could say American Tail, Land Before Time. Those are obviously All Dogs Go to Heaven. I mean, the guy had hit after hit after hit, I feel like. But it kind of, in my opinion, it all starts with The Secret of NIMH. It's a great story. It grabs you. It's sad. It's like sad, happy, scary. It's all the emotions. For a cartoon, for an animated movie, it hit right. I mean, I was 3 years old when it came out, so I mean, I probably saw it not in the theaters, but I probably saw it like the following year on video cassette. So I mean, yeah, I love this movie, and it was, and that's why it's on my list. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, James, do you have anything else to say about The Secret of NIMH?
I've heard of it. It's probably one of those hidden gem films that I haven't seen, but I know who Don Bluth is. I know his work. Like he did like Fievel Goes West and like the American Tales. I also know that he wrote or he did A Troll in Central Park, and all those, but I never saw The Secret of NIMH.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I will go ahead now and give another one of Andy's picks here, and we're going with one of the more modern films I think we have on that anybody's going to have on their list here, and he picked Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Of course, this came out in 2018, featuring you had Miles Morales as Spider-Man as he hooks up with these other variations, kind of almost like it pretty much like inadvertently set the groundwork for what we would see in the MCU with Spider-Man No Way Home. But I remember this film getting a lot of buzz when it first came out, and of course it got tremendous reviews. You have a great cast involved, some great songs in it. I know the soundtrack was really well acclaimed, and I think shocked a lot of people when it won best animated feature at the Academy Awards that year, because I mean that was going up against some tough competition. You had Incredibles 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet, Isle of Dogs, and Mirai. So it was some good competition there, but it definitely I remember again this all the buzz about it, and now apparently I heard they're working on a sequel, so we'll see how they continue to build off this universe here. Keith, do you have anything else to say about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse?
I was looking at my list, and this actually, this should be one of my honorable mentions, and for many reasons. I mean, it didn't end up on my Mount Rushmore. It could have easily been. I mean, this is one of those where when I was going through looking at all the movies that I had, because I mean, I had a list of probably 20 to 25 movies that I was like, okay, these are the ones I'm kind of narrowing it down. This is in the top. I mean, I had 2 honorable mentions that I sent to you. This is a third, and it's really, you could interchange any of those honorable mentions and really have it be the 5th one on the list if I had a 5th spot. One of the things I loved about this movie was the 3D part of it, like portion of it that you would see in the theater, but also that once you started watching it at home, or it still had that like 3D-ish effect, which I thought which came through your television set, and I thought that was kind of really unique that they were able to get the animation to make it look 3D. On top of that, it's an amazing story. It fits perfectly within, I would say, even within the MCU. It's probably one of the reasons why Sony still has the Spider-Man product, and they haven't fully given it over to Marvel yet, or to Disney yet. And then, of course, like the voice actors on this. I mean, Jake Johnson, Haley Steinfeld. You have Lily Tomlin, John Mulaney. I mean, Nicolas Cage. I mean, it's incredible. And then, of course, I mean, I don't want to mispronounce the names, but is it Shamik Moore and Mahershala Ali? I mean, it's just come on, man. This is it's a great cast altogether. It's a great story, and I'm looking forward to the sequel. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Grooney, do you have anything to say about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse?
Like when I first saw it, I wasn't fascinated with it because I'm just used to like I'm used to live action Spider-Man movies. I'll probably have to see this one as well to understand the grasp of why everyone likes this movie, because I'm just accustomed to the live action Spider-Man movies.
Okay. Chico?
I am. This could have been fifth entry into my Mount Rushmore. It was really good. I just did not think of it at the time, but I remember watching this. I remember really enjoying it, and then I hear about the sequel and thinking to myself, the sequel's gonna have Japanese Spider-Man in it. I have to make plans to watch it.
Here.
Well, it's gonna be hard to top. What was the Spider Ham?
Yeah.
Seemed like
Is this yours? I believe this is yours.
All right. We'll go back around now to Keith. Give us the next entry on your Mount Rushmore of animated films.
Well, this is I think the one animated movie that probably from 1989 everybody was waiting for. And that, of course, is the Simpsons movie, 2007, 20th Century Fox. This is like, there are a lot of times movies are like, you see movies are considered love stories and like love stories to the fans, and sometimes they don't come across and sometimes they do. This came through. For me, everything in this friggin' movie is perfect. I mean, it is just, the jokes are perfect. The acting is the voice acting is perfect. The animation itself is the story is everything is friggin' perfect. It's just, this was a grand slam, 10 out of 10, A+++ in my opinion. It's not only, I think, one of the greatest animated movies of all time, it's very well one of the best friggin' movies of all time, in my opinion. It's so good. I love this movie. I think that it created a renaissance with the actual Simpsons television show after this, because a lot of people rip the seasons after season 10. I know a lot of people who go season 11 on sucks, and I will say I don't disagree completely. I'm still a big fan of The Simpsons. I have been since I was a kid. But I'll tell you that after this movie came out, I feel like the writers had a renaissance and they said, you know what? Let's start. And from what I hear, or from what I've read, part of that is they started to bring in some of the old writers who used to contribute back in the day. And that's what's been making the show as good as it is exactly what they did in the movie. They brought a lot of people in. I think the writing staff was huge. And this is one of those that, like I said, everybody was waiting for it. And I feel like everybody was given fan service and should not complain about this movie at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, as someone myself who has watched The Simpsons, since I was, little in the 90s, I was excited at the prospect of a movie, and like you, I really loved the movie when it came out. Even though you can argue it's pretty much just like a 90-minute TV episode, I thought they did a really good job with how they handled the story, where Homer finally takes things way too far and has to redeem himself to save the Springfield and get back his family. I think really just touched on so many emotions, and I think it really did a great job in conveying that from the small screen to the big screen. Grooney, I know you have this on your Mount Rushmore as well.
This movie was just laugh after laugh after laugh, and the ending, the climatic ending, where Homer's just like, you know what, I have to buck up and I have to save my family. And him just landing the whole motorcycle, the motorcycle, and riding the big dome like it's just his huge circus cage was hilarious, and the fact that he saved the town, it was just really, really funny, from even the first, the opening scene, when Ralph goes, "I'm gay," and then onward, it was just really one joke after another funny.
I mean, Grooney, right? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut in, but like, you see Bart's dick. I mean, it's so great. And then, I mean, I've been known to say like quotes from The Simpsons. Like, one of my favorite quotes to always say is "Everything's coming up Millhouse" when something good happens. And I mean, I've used the line like "best day of your life so far" or like "worst day of your life so far." I've used that so many times, and that's from this movie. So yes.
Yeah, just hilarious.
Yeah, I agree. Chico, do you have anything else to say about the Simpsons movie?
To this day, it is the only movie that I ever saw in the movie theater twice.
Yes.
Yeah. I like how everything just nicely flowed one sort of stream of consciousness into another, and crazy enough, all of this would not even fly in like a standard episode of The Simpsons, but as a movie, it all works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even as a movie, they, you had to keep it, to where you want to keep that, core audience. So you obviously you kind of go way too far, but I think they definitely went just as far as they could to kind of, keep it edgy, but also, still make it good for the family. So definitely, so kudos to them on that one.
Well, as good for the family as you can get with Bart showing off little Bart.
But the way they did it was so classy. Like,
yes,
he's the whole.
It was classy as hell. Yeah,
they do the same gag. There's that episode of The Simpsons where they do the same gag where Homer and Marge get caught having sex in like the windmill at the mini golf course, and they're running around. They're trying to run back home, and like obviously everything just happens to fall in place of like Homer and Marge's private areas. So they did the exact same gag with this, but then they took it that one step further of, okay, we can do this in a movie now. We're going to get away with it. Here's a 10-year-old cartoon boy's penis. And then Bart goes like, but everybody will see my little doodle. It's just like, it was so good how they handled it. It was great. And then I love when Homer and Marge start having sex up in Alaska, and the animals are all like, they're all looking like they all look like Cinderella or Snow White, and then they immediately turn to like, oh, that's what it looks like when humans are having sex. Like, come on, that's the joke that all the parents in the movie went, oh yeah, that's right.
Like, that's nice, and then all of a sudden, that's not so nice.
Yeah, honey, we know what they're doing, don't they?
Cover the younglings' eyes.
Exactly.
Oh man, that's good. All right, let's go back around to James. Give us the next entry on your Mount Rushmore.
All righty. Well, someone is probably going to correct me, but this is probably and I'll probably stand corrected on this, but this is probably the only movie that has ever uncensored the F word, the F-U-C-K. I am talking about South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. If you go back to all those episodes where they were blurting out the F word, you could say the B word, the witch of a capital B. You could say ass. You could say a lot of other words. But this movie, oh man, it feels like it's just like it starts out so innocent. They just want to go see a movie, and it's the Terrence and Phillip movie. The one where and from then on, it's just F-bomb after F-bomb. And then when the parents get involved, it's Mrs. Broflovsky leading the charge. The funniest part of that whole movie, in my opinion, is when Carmen is doing Kyle's mom's a bitch, and he does the end with the little tap dance, and Mrs. Broflovsky is standing right behind him, he turns around and he goes, "Ah, fuck." That was the funniest part of the whole movie, in my opinion. And that movie was straight up just funny, really. Like, I was dying of laughter watching that movie. It's one that I can just watch over and over again, too. And I would, like, if it was on comedy, like when it was on Comedy Central, like, they were showing it every Saturday at midnight. I was like, oh, yeah, do I want to watch it this time? Sure, I do. So that right there it's the movie of all movies.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I love South Park the show, and I love the movie as well. Just the fact that they made it into a musical, I think, just makes it even better. There's so many funny songs in that that whole thing. Just the whole idea that this eventually leads to like a war between America and Canada, and then if like Terrence and Phillip get killed, then that will allow Satan and Saddam Hussein to rule the to rule the earth. Just oh my god, just so funny, and it's just the fact that we finally, after even though the show had only been around for 2 years, that we finally get to see Kenny's face for the first time and hear his voice for the first time unmuffled, was really cool. And yeah, I mean there's just so much fun stuff about it. The fact that it got that Blame Canada got nominated for an Academy Award for Best Song, and the fact that they had at the show Robin Williams perform it, it was just so great, yeah, great stuff there. And I'm glad that got that somebody had that on their Mount Rushmore. Chico, do you have anything else to say about South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut?
Oh God, I remember it was a big deal when it aired on Comedy Central, because it was like the first movie to air on Comedy Central completely uncut, completely uncensored. I remember I had to stay up late to watch it, and it wasn't a school night. It was like a Saturday night, and I was like, okay, let's do this. And I'll tell you right now, it's a movie that just hits all of the notes, and you can tell that there was a whole lot of love that went into this, the same kind of love that went into early seasons of the show, and it just hit all the right notes for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the fact that they actually made this movie while at the same time making episodes of the show shows the dedication that Matt and Trey had for it. So, I don't know anybody else that would have been able to go through that. So, kudos to them. Keith, do you have anything else to say?
This is probably another one that should be an honorable mention for me. I think I went with this was great. I think if it wasn't the first to use animated movie to use the word fuck, it was one of the firsts, and it's probably the most popular of any animated movie, I think, to use language like that. It was excellent. It was an excellent movie for that show and for that experience that we went through watching it. I was in college I was a freshman in college when South Park first came out, and when we were watching it on Comedy Central, it was a must see. It was a happening. So when the movie came out, like you said, 2 years later, all of us went in line and we watched it. And I mean, I think I ended up working at a Blockbuster later on, and when it came out, it was like one of the first movies I bought, like at work. Like I was like, I gotta watch this movie. This is so good. I'm gonna own it. And I probably wore that tape out watching it, because it was just such a good. It's a fun watch. It's a great watch. Like it's a quick watch. Like you can watch it. Doing anything. Kyle's Mom is a Big Fat Bitch. That's a great song. you could really sing that while you're doing housework. Same with Blame Canada. Operation Get Behind the Darkies. I mean, come on. There's so many great lines and references to that stupid movie, and it's a perfect satire. It's. I mean, they know exactly. Trey Parker and Matt Stone know exactly what they're doing with that show anyway, and that show still hits now. So yeah, I love that movie. Great movie. Great pick.
Yeah. Have you heard of the Emancipation Proclamation? I don't listen to hip hop. Oh God.
Hey, what's the matter, guy? I can be your friend, guy. Come on, guy.
Oh my god, that's great. All right, well, let's go back around to Chico. Give us the next entry on your Mount Rushmore of animated films.
Next entry in my Mount Rushmore of animated films. It is, oh gosh, I'm dipping into the Don Bluth well again because I don't remember this film strictly for the movie, which was really good, I should say, especially growing up in that age. But then again, I was a kid and I liked the cute little mice that were running around trying to find each other. But yeah, my second entry is An American Tail, which is just a real masterclass, especially when you consider all the things that were going on behind the scenes. That I mean, the movie itself could have been a lot bigger than it was, but even as it was released, it was still a really well put together movie, and it was still a really touching story. And it continued on that whole road that was paved the way by the Secret of NIMH there. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I swear to God, I did not think of picking more than one Don Bluth movie when I did this. Okay.
Hey, that's no problem. I mean, he was definitely a powerhouse. So he had a lot of great films, and this was definitely one of them. And Rob had this on his Mount Rushmore as well. I absolutely love this film. This might be my favorite non-Disney animated film of all time. I loved it when I was a kid. I still love it today. There's a lot of great characters in it. Some really good songs. The animation's amazing.
Yeah.
You get.
I will say, if you don't cry when you hear Somewhere Out There, something's wrong with you.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Agree.
I mean, you just go on this such emotional journey of Fievel trying to find his family, and and them trying to avoid all the cats, and it's just such a beautiful beautifully told story. And what's crazy about it is that the year this came out, that same year, Disney had their own mouse film. Another actually one of my all-time favorites, of course, The Great Mouse Detective. So you had two of the biggest animated films that year were both about mice. So I always thought that was kind of interesting. And of course, for me, remembering going to Universal Studios in Orlando as a kid and going to the American Tail water park there, always brought up some great memories. So I'm if I didn't make a list myself, but if I did, this definitely would probably be this would easily be number one for me. Keith, do you have anything else to say about An American Tail?
While I was doing research for this, I was looking at and I went, geez, I need to watch that movie again. It's been so long since I've seen it. I remember crying a lot when I watched it. I mean, and I don't, maybe it was just because I was young and it was, a very touching tale, but it's also one of those movies I remember that they could have made this into a regular movie. Where it's starring real life actors, and instead of it being a little mouse, it's a little kid, and he just gets lost from his parents. And I mean, it's easily transferable into a live action movie, I feel, and that's always kind of the best animated movies, I think, is when you could almost picture this as a live action and just see how well it translates into, and you can go, yeah, I can believe that almost, And I mean, Disney's doing that nowadays now with all their classic animated movies. They're starting to turn them into live action movies, with either CGI special effects or whatever the case is. But I could see this absolutely being one of those. So great pick again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
And don't feel bad about having more than one Don Bluth movie on there. I mean, like Steve said at the beginning, if we included Disney and Pixar, most of the Mount Rushmores would either be all Disney or all Pixar. So
I didn't feel bad about it. I'm just like, okay, I didn't plan on this, but this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. Gurney?
So this is one that I've seen bits and pieces of. I haven't seen the whole film, but yeah, this one is one that seems really good. It's got a great adventure. A little mouse is trying to find his family, and he's trying to avoid cats as well. So little cat and mouse tale here and locating your family. So good choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. All right, well, I'll go ahead and give another one of Rob's picks here. We're actually going to stay on the Don Bluth train because the next one he picked was All Dogs Go to Heaven. This was another one of my favorites growing up. Not on the same level as American Tail, but still really I loved it a lot. Again, a great cast. You had Burt Reynolds, Dom DeLuise, Vic Tayback, Charles Riley, Lonnie Anderson, and it's an interesting story about this this dog who ends up getting backstabbed and killed by his partner, and he goes to heaven, but he wants to go back to Earth, and he has to redeem himself, and he meets up with his best friend, and they end up helping out this little orphan girl, and it's again just a really good little story of redemption and being a in this case a good dog. So the fact that they like I said, they got Burt Reynolds to get involved in this film, I think was a pretty big get for them. So definitely a good little I think it's a great, again, maybe not on the same level as an American Tail, but still a really great good film here by Don Bluth. So Keith, do you have anything else to say about All Dogs Go to Heaven?
I feel like Dom DeLuise or Burt Reynolds lost a game of poker to Dom DeLuise, which is why he had to do this movie. But no, I think that it's a great movie. It is a great movie. I mean, it's kind of a Heaven Can Wait, if you want to say it's like a kind of like almost a reference to that, where it's just anytime I see movies that are very similar like that, I think they're great. The protagonist dies and is like, wait, can you just give me a minute? And then goes back and does something and redeems himself in the end. I mean, it's a great movie altogether. One thing I remember Don Bluth. I mean, now I know pretty much every Disney animated movie really kills you and crushes you and emotionally. But it seemed like every Don Bluth movie I could think of, I was crying all the time watching because they're so friggin' sad. I mean, like this American Tail, Land Before Time. Let's not even talk about Land Before Time. I mean, it's just everybody's weeping watching these friggin' animated movies as kids. So yeah, All Dogs Go to Heaven's a great pick.
Yeah, and just means it's just when you read about it, the fact that I mentioned one name I didn't mention was Judith Barcy, who played Anne Marie. She was also Ducky in The Land Before Time, and it seemed like she was I remember reading like Don Bluth was really high on her, but unfortunately she was tragically killed by her father, so we never got to see what she would have ended up becoming. Yep. So it's just that's just
another friggin' tragedy.
Yeah, not to sully the mood here, but I just wanted to bring that mention that because it just adds to the kind of history of this film. Gruny, do you have anything else to say about All Dogs Go to Heaven?
I do not. Let's move on.
Chico?
All I remember is I loved the dog character. I thought Anne Marie was a bit annoying.
Okay.
But she was cute too.
Yeah, she was. No, she was. All right, let's go back around here to Chico. Give us the next entry on your Mount Rushmore of animated films.
Well, the bad news is I'm delving into the Don Bluth well again. The good news is rats are not involved. I am going for my third pick as Anastasia, which was basically a movie that is really good and that hit so many notes that people actually thought Disney made it. Disney did not make this movie. I know you want to think that Disney made the movie. Disney did not make the movie.
Okay.
But yeah, had a really good historical element, had a really good story behind it, and you know what? It was cute. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, this is another one I don't think I've seen in its entirety. I might have seen bits and pieces of. It's another one that I think I want to go back and look at because I remember when it came out, it did okay, but it didn't seem to do as well as I think they hoped. But it seems like modern era, the modern day is kind of given it a bit of a made it almost like kind of underrated. And like it's funny, like you said, you know. I'm looking at it right now, Wiki, and people still think that Anastasia was a Disney princess when in fact she wasn't.
Well, technically she's now because it was produced by Fox.
Oh yeah, Fox is now owned by Disney. So,
So if you wanted to make a case for Anastasia being a Disney princess, you can make that case. I wouldn't, but you can.
Well, we'll see if they end up doing anything further with it, I guess. So, but again, you had a really good voice cast here. I mean, Meg Ryan, John Cusack, Kelsey Grammer, Christopher Lloyd, Angela Lansbury, a young Kirsten Dunst, J.K. Simmons. I mean, again, just a really solid voice cast, and again, just from what I've seen of it, the animation is really wonderfully done. So, I think this is one of those ones. If you've not seen it before or haven't seen it in a while, maybe go back and watch it again, and you'll be pleasantly surprised with how good it is. Keith, do you have anything else to say about Anastasia?
I am. I mean, even after all these years, I'm stunned that this is not a Disney movie. The animation looks exactly like Disney animation. It's incredible, like how much it looks like it. So that's a shock. I mean, plus it's a good story that's kind of based in reality, I guess, if you want to go down that road. So no, I'm surprised. That's shocking, and I agree with the voice casting. I mean, the voice casting is the bomb in this. Can't beat Meg Ryan and Christopher Lloyd. Anything Christopher Lloyd does touches, and of course it's got Hank Azaria in it. The MVP of all voice actors, Hank Azaria. Forget Mel Blanc. It's Hank Azaria.
Yeah. All right, Gurney.
I did not like this movie, and I saw it I actually saw this in theaters when I was a little kid, and I didn't like it. I knew exactly that it wasn't a Disney movie. I was one of those smart because I had the Power Rangers Turbo movie on VHS, and of course, it said 20th Century Fox presents Anastasia. So I was like, well, I know that's not Disney. So, yeah. So I was one of those people who knew it was not a Disney movie. Let it show for the record.
Well, if they didn't make it clear before, at least they did there. So
Yeah.
that. All right. Well, I will go ahead and give another one of Andy's picks here, and this is actually another one of my favorite, at least franchises that's come out in the last decade or so, and that's Despicable Me. Specifically, he put the first one on here. I love the Despicable Me franchise. I love the 1, 2, 3. Of course, you have the 2 Minions spinoffs. I mean, the Minions really almost overnight became part of pop culture. Just how just with their antics and their look and everything. And I mean, again, great voice casting here. I mean, Steve Carell is Gru. He's fantastic in that. And just it again just hits all the the good points, and I remember loving the first Despicable Me when it came out. I think it holds up still really well. I'm anxious to see what they do with it going forward. I think I've heard rumors that there's a fourth one on the way, so it will be very interesting to see what happens with that franchise. But I definitely I'm glad Andy put it on his list, and I'm glad that it was mentioned because it is a really really fun film, and it is a great franchise. So, Keith, do you have anything else to say about Despicable Me?
I do like the first one. I've seen several times. I like it a lot. The only concern I have, and this might be, and I don't want to talk out of turn here, is once we started getting into the heavy CGI animations, it just started to be almost like I almost feel like they're not true animations, if that makes sense. I mean, I know they are, obviously, but that's where and when we get to the next grouping, it's kind of like a similar where it's like you have the people doing like wearing the CGI suits and things like that. That's the only thing that I kind of looked at when this list is that as much as I loved, and I know Shrek was kind of more CGI and it's on my list, but that's because it kind of broke the ground there. But I still like the classic animation more, but I love the story itself. I think the story is great, and that's kind of it. I don't want to put it down because it's not. It's a great pick, and it should be on anybody's list. I would, clap to that. So good movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gurney.
It's a very great movie. A guy has to take in his two nieces and a nephew, and he's trying to take over the world, and his they get in the way, and it's just a lot of fun here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually three girls. It's
three girls. Okay, yeah, my bad. I thought one was a boy, but
Yeah, no, that's okay. Chico.
Oh God, I love Despicable Me. I almost wish I thought of it sooner, but it is a really good movie. And in fact, when I saw it with my sister, she couldn't stop quoting. I don't know which kid it was, but all of a sudden she referred to every sort of stuffed pink Hello Kitty toy as "it's so fluffy." And also, Pharrell Williams does a really killer soundtrack to both Despicable Me 1 and 2. I defy you to get happy out of your head.
It's taken years. And it's still not fully out.
Nope. Not going to happen.
The mere mention of Pharrell, or even seeing some of those hats he wore, and it comes right back in again. So, thanks.
No problem.
That song's definitely an earworm. So, all right. Well, Keith, you have one entry left on your Mount Rushmore, so why don't you go ahead and give it to us?
I do, and I will give you one name, and hopefully this rings bells to everybody. Yukon Cornelius. That's right. I am going with all the way back to 1964 and the Rankin Bass production of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I think this is like stop motion animation. I mean, it is fantastic. This is the benchmark for the Rankin Bass stop motion animation movies. It's the greatest story of Rudolph. It's got the dentist elf that he works with, that he goes to, it's Yukon Cornelius, for those who don't know or don't remember. He's the person who's searching for salt, and the entire time he's out, he hacks off a piece of ice and he goes, "That's good salt." Like he keeps licking it. I mean, it's got Burl Ives, the cast itself playing Sam the Snowman, telling the story. I think Burl Ives, if I'm right, I think he reprised his. No, he didn't reprise his role. Because he was dead already. I was going to say he was in Elf, but I think it's the same character of the Snowman, I believe, and they probably got a Burl Ives sound-alike or whatever to do it. But no, I mean, this is one of those movies that was always on TV when I was a kid around the holiday season. It's up there. It's wacky animation, like I said. It's claymation or stop motion or whatever you want to call it. It's so good, and it's so good, and it's so old, and I just remember all the Rankin and Bass movies that they had back in the day, and from the 60s and 70s that they kept playing, and it was so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite Christmas specials that have ever come out. Like I said, really fun characters: Rudolph, Hermie, Yukon Cornelius, the Abominable Snow Monster, and Burl Ives definitely is the glue that holds everything together as Sam the Snowman. So. When I saw you put that on there, I was kind of raising an eyebrow because I know it was never released in theaters. Obviously, it was just a TV special. But you know what? I mean, you can basically say it was a made-for-TV film. So, and it is animated, so it does count. So definitely, you're always guaranteed to get one of those kind of like out-of-the-box type of picks here. So I give you a lot of credit for that one.
You'll allow it.
I will, as the now unfortunately late great Mills Lane would say, I'll allow it.
Thank you.
Grooney, do you have anything to say about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer?
It is a timeless classic. I've watched it many, many times. You know, he just wants to be on Santa's sleigh team, and lo and behold, you know, Rudolph's nose saved everything when, you know, when there wasn't going to be a Christmas, apparently, because, you know, Santa couldn't get through the fog. And I want to add, my friend's father told us this. He said, where there were no VHSs, no DVDs, no nothing. If you missed Rudolph, it only came on once a year.
Mhm.
If you missed it, you missed it. It
Yep.
ain't coming back until that time again next year. That's it.
Yeah, that's definitely what made it special. So, all right, Chico, do you have anything else to say about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer?
Oh God, one of the classics come from the Rankin Bass library. I loved that. I love that Rudolph, the voice actress who did Rudolph's voice, came back to do Rudolph's Shiny New Year. Perhaps an understated sequel of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So, damn ears, though. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, Gurney, you have one entry left on your Mount Rushmore, so let us know what it is.
So this is one of those where, in my opinion, the second movie of the franchise is better than the first. I was a huge fan of Rugrats, of the show, the Nickelodeon show Rugrats. It put Nickelodeon animation on the map along with Ren and Stimpy and Doug, because those were the three shows that put Nickelodeon animation on the map. When everybody like in across the United States who grew up on Nickelodeon were saying, "Oh, they're making a Rugrats movie," I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, like let's go see the Rugrats movie." No, finally, they're making a Rugrats movie. I liked it, but it didn't really have a great plot. You know, it was like, okay, so Tommy doesn't like his brother. Okay, let's get him back to the hospital. Oh, we're lost in the woods, you know? So I was like, this is sort of confusing. Now, so my pick is Rugrats in Paris. The second of the Rugrats franchise. This one, to me, was the better film. It had a better plot, you know? Chucky wants a new mom, and the Rugrats go to Paris because Stu needs to fix the Reptar robot that he made for this Paris company. And it has that happy ending where finally, you know, Chucky's dad gets married, and you know, Chucky gets a mom. Chucky finally has a mom that he always wanted. He has a new family. And it also was the movie where the adults finally heard the baby speak, because Chucky says no to his dad when he's going to marry the bad lady, you know, the bad woman in the movie. So it was really, really a great movie and a very great happy ending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm like you. I watched the Rugrats 2 when I was a kid, and I remember the first film coming out and liking that. I actually don't think I've ever seen this sequel. I've heard some good things about it, but it just never kind of just fell into my radar. I know that it would play off into the TV series when Kimmy became a part of the family. But yeah, I think. Yeah, I think. I mean, that's really all. I mean, like I said, since I haven't seen it, that's really all I have to say. But I know that the Rugrats were obviously one of the most popular cartoons of the '90s, and the fact that they got really three films, because you had the first one, you had this one, and then you had the one where they crossed with the Wild Thornberries. So at least they got some good representation on the big screen as well. Chico, do you have anything else to say about Rugrats in Paris?
I remember seeing the original movie. I do not remember seeing Rugrats in Paris or Rugrats Go Wild. I wish I did, but I don't.
Okay, Keith?
I have to also, I did not see this. This is one of those ones that slipped my viewing pleasures. But like I said, I will fight to the death to defend Grooney's pick here. So.
All right. Well, Chico, you have one entry left on your Mount Rushmore, so let us know what it is.
Okay, it does not involve Don Bluth.
Oh, good.
But it does. But it does involve Hayao Miyazaki, and if it is a Mount Rushmore of non-Disney, non-Pixar animated films, I gotta put a Hayao Miyazaki Studio Ghibli film on the list, and mine is just one that really stays with me, and for many people, it was basically an introduction to Hayao Miyazaki's work. I mean, and it was a record-breaking film, believe it or not. It held the record until it was recently broken by Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie. But yeah, my fourth entry is Spirited Away, which basically is a crash course in Miyazaki, Kami, and what not to do if you find yourself in a marketplace filled with food.
Yeah, this is one that's again has been on my radar for a while. I've wanted to see because I know of its great reputation. I have seen a few Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki films. Like I remember seeing because a few of them did come out in the theaters in the late 2000s, early 2010s. Like I saw Ponyo and Secret World of Arrietty, which I love. That's like one of my favorites. Just such beautiful animation with that. And I did see the oldest one I've seen so far is Castle in the Sky. So I know these are on my list because I know HBO Max has all of them. So they're definitely on my list of things to watch.
How long until David Zaslav decides, nope, they're going?
Hopefully not too much. Hopefully not for too long. So, but we'll see. But I think when you talk to a lot of people and discuss, Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli, this is the one that a lot of people will probably point to first, and for good reason, because it is a fantastic film, and I definitely look forward to watching when I get around to it. Keith, do you have anything else to say about Spirited Away?
This is one of those that's on my list of movies to watch. I have like an ever-growing list of movies that either from friends recommending it or seeing like a trailer and just going, ooh, I need to watch that. And this is one of those that I haven't seen, but it's on my list, and I know it's going to be one of those that I'm going to be excited to see. And I mean, geez, I know it's 21 years old at this point, but no, I mean, it is something that's on my list. It's just I got to get around to it eventually one day, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. There's so much stuff to watch, yet only so much time in a day. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
Grooney, do you have anything else to say about Spirited Away?
No, I do not.
Okay. Well, I will go ahead and give Rob's last pick here, and this is another kind of older film, and he chose Watership Down from 1978. I don't think I've ever seen this film. I've heard about it vaguely, but I've not seen it. I know it's again kind of one of those films that seems like it's really dark for kids, kind of in the same vein as some of those early like Don Bluth films. But I know it's stuff. But I've just reading about it. I've heard some great things about it. I've heard some kind of mixed things about it. So I will trust Rob on his pick here. But it's another one that I think is definitely at least worth a watch at one point. Keith, do you have anything to say about Watership Down?
No, I don't even know this one. I apologize for that. But I mean, like I said, This is, yeah, or like you just said, I should say this is probably one of those that we should give a watch one time.
Well, this was a release in the UK first before it was released in the US. So I think maybe our pals over across the pond, like Ben and Callum and Rory, would know more about this one than we would. So, yeah. Grooney?
Yeah, like Keith said, I never heard of it, and I've never seen it.
Chico?
I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
Okay, so that's one on all of our lists to watch at some point. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I will go ahead now and give the last film here, which is on Andy's list here, and this is another one from more modern times that has garnered a lot of love here, and that's of course the Lego Movie. This obviously, Legos were a huge part of a lot of our lives as kids. So to see an actual movie come out on the big screen was really interesting. And you talk about earworms. Everything is awesome. I think dominated the airwaves throughout that the time that it came out. Of course, this spawned a sequel, and then it spawned 2 spinoffs, and then of course we all know about the variety of video games that have come out over the years with the Lego brand attached to it. But again, this is one that I think a lot of people, and especially in more recent years, will have as one of those great animated films. Now, Keith, you actually have it on your next list here, so I don't know if you want to go ahead and talk about it or not.
I would like to pass until we get to it the next time around, if that's okay.
No, that's fine. Grooney, do you have anything to say about Lego Movie, or do you want to hold off as well?
Well, it's not on my other list, so I'll just say it now. It's fun. Like, yeah, it's fun for family. It's a fun family film. I liked Legos, but I wasn't really a fan of Legos growing up. I didn't really play with Legos, but I understand that it's just a fun family friendly film. And I think the best one of the best video games is Lego Star Wars. Like whether it's the original 6 or it's the Skywalker saga. I really enjoy Lego Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Chico?
I really liked the Lego Movie. I didn't think it was much of an animated movie. I thought it was more of the other list, and it's not on my other list, but it could be.
Okay, that's no problem. Well, that will go ahead and wrap up all of our main lists here. But let's now go ahead and just touch on any honorable mentions quickly, if we have any. Keith, do you have any honorable mentions you still want to talk about?
I do. Just 2. Like I said, I think the third one would have been Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. We talked about that. I had honorable mention the Transformers movie in 1986 and How the Grinch Stole Christmas in 1966. Uniquely, the How the Grinch Stole Christmas is a Chuck Jones, which I think is kind of cool because Chuck Jones, well known for Warner Brothers productions and Looney Tunes and stuff. And then the Transformers movie, I mean, this was the friggin' movie for me when I was a kid. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, I went to see this in the theater. I probably saw this a couple of times because I'm pretty sure every kid my age had their birthday party at the movie theater to see Transformers the movie. So we probably saw it like 3 or 4 times in the theater when I was a kid. Great movie, great soundtrack. Cried, you cry a lot. You're so happy. It was a shame that Rodimus Prime never really made it as a thing, but I'm willing to let that go finally after all these years. But those are my honorable mentions.
Okay. Grooney, do you have any honorable mentions that you want to mention that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, I have just one. I don't know if you guys ever seen this one, but this is one on VHS. Now, I was a fan of Alvin the Chipmunk movies. But this one I've rented over and over, and I've probably worn it out at my house. Alvin the Chipmunks, the Chipmunk Adventure. It's when Alvin wants to go, see the world because Dave's going to Europe, and he gets tricked into doing doing some villains like burglar robbers or whatever, their dirty work in a hot air balloon race around the world versus the Chipettes with involving diamonds and just like all these like people trying to get the diamonds. But it was a really good. I thought it was a really good cartoon movie and very funny sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one I'm not familiar with, so I might have to take a look into that as well. Chico, do you have any honorable mentions that we haven't talked about yet?
Aside from the two I mentioned, Despicable Me and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, one I couldn't even, one that I could not even think about while I was making the list. Hanna-Barbera's Charlotte's Web.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
It just hit all the right notes, especially for a book adaptation. Hit all the emotional notes, and I swear to God, if you are not crying at the end, something's wrong with you.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. I completely forgot about that. That's another film I loved growing up as a kid. So I'm glad you brought it up, that it got mentioned here. Andy had a couple of other honorable mentions that I'll just kind of go over briefly. He also had Transformers the movie on there as well. He had Shrek 2 as well. One of those sequels you can argue was as good, if not better, than the original. And he does have a couple of other DreamWorks films. He has Kung Fu Panda. Which has, as another one that I've always kind of had a little interest in, but never got around to seeing. Another one of my favorite films that DreamWorks has done, How to Train Your Dragon. I love that franchise. That's one of my favorites that they've done. He also had Madagascar, the first one on here, another kind of extended franchise that that DreamWorks has done. He also had Hoodwinked, which was one that I again. Not really. I mean, I've heard of it. I've seen it bits and pieces, but not really. Haven't seen myself. And then one I'm actually glad he mentioned because I think this is another kind of underrated film, and that's Megamind. Mm-hmm. Just such a really good film. Will Ferrell's great in it. Tina Fey's great in it. Just really good stuff. So I'm glad Andy mentioned it. And then I did have three other ones I kind of wanted to bring up here. We mentioned it a couple times, but Land Before Time, another one I absolutely loved as a kid. Again, just such a sad story and just beautiful animation behind it. Another kind of interesting one for the 90s, Fern Gully, The Last Rainforest. Was another one that I remember liking a lot when I was a kid. And then the third one I have, another more modern film, and just kind of in the same, it took what the South Park movie did and just amped it up to the 10th degree, and that's Sausage Party. Just for the absolute, just sheer madness behind that film, I think that at least deserved a little bit of a mention because it is technically an animated film. So wanted to throw those out there as well. All right, nice. Well Yes, so that will go ahead and wrap up this first half. We've talked a lot of great films here, a lot of great animated films, but we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about a very unique genre of films that incorporate animation into them. This, of course, is Making Mount Rushmore here on the Pop Experience, and we will be back on the other side of this break.
Everybody get up, it's time to slam now. We got the real jam going down. Welcome to the Space Jam. Here's your chance, do your dance at the Space Jam. All right.
And we're back on Making Mount Rushmore here on the PTB Pop Experience. I am Steve Riddle, your host and moderator, along with panelists Keith Langston, James Gruenberg, and Chico Alexander, along with Rob Kilner and Andy Atherton by proxy. We are discussing films, and of course in our last segment here, we discussed our favorite non-Disney Pixar animated films. And now for this half, we're going to flip the script a bit and talk about hybrid films. These, of course, are films that are part animation and part live action, whether it be like majority animation, minority live action, or vice versa. Just films that incorporate both of those elements into the film and make them even more memorable than they usually are. So we're going to go ahead and start off this half with Chico. Give us the first entry on your Mount Rushmore of hybrid films.
I can bring up my hybrid animated films list here. The first one is obvious. I mean, it had every classic cartoon character known to man at that time, had a really big story, and it was really sort of cutting edge, state of the art for the time. And it is perhaps the first movie you think of when you think of a hybrid animation film, but it wasn't the first, but it was the one that I thought did it the best, and it was Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. This is easily one of those like the greatest collection of the greatest hybrid film done, and I know Rob and Andy had it on their list as well for good reason. Just such a really, and I mean the story itself is great, because you got Roger, who is accused of killing Marvin Acme, and he looks to Eddie to save him, and like you said, just the incorporation of all of these characters all across the realms. I mean, who would ever thought, that you would see Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny on the screen at the same time? I mean, it's just such a, it was just such a, mind blown thing at the time. And, there's, great characters in it. I mean, Bob Hoskins is fantastic as Eddie. Obviously you got, Christopher Lloyd, who steals it as Judge Doom. There's just so much to say about it. I mean, and when we did our animated tournament, this made it all the way to the Final Four. That's how great of a film it was. And like you said, even though we've had live action animated hybrids prior, it really kind of brought that genre back to the forefront, and kind of is often credited as kind of being the Kickstarter to Disney beginning its renaissance. So definitely, if you're making a Mount Rushmore of hybrid films, I don't see any world where you don't have it on your list. Grooney, I know you had it on your Mount Rushmore as well.
Yes, this is a masterpiece of a hybrid film. The story is great, like you said, Roger's trying to clear his name. Eddie is a detective who's doesn't want to take a case anymore. He just wants to get drunk and drink all the time. But Roger brings him out of it. And to this day, it is the only film to have both Disney and Warner Brother characters together in the same movie. Because I believe they did like a deal where it was like, they would all get the same time. It's like, oh, I want the Disney characters, but the Warner Brother characters get the same amount of time, within the movie as well. So a really great job, and I think like one of the best lines is with Droopy when Eddie steps onto the elevator and he goes, "Going down, sir?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, and then he falls and he hits hard in the elevator, and then Droopy goes, "Watch your steps, sir." Just very good, very good lines. That little Hachi-Machi scene where Jessica Rabbit falls out of the taxi cab, and boy, is Jessica Rabbit just so, pretty. I know it's an animated hybrid film, just an animated character, but wow.
Yeah, the fact that we were all perfectly fine with a rabbit, falling in love with a human, and didn't think anything of it at the time, I think is kind of funny in retrospect. And I remember when after the film came out, they did a couple like Roger Rabbit shorts with him and Baby Herman. So it seemed like they wanted to keep him around as a character, but I think after that he kind of unfortunately faded away. You don't really hear much about him anymore, so it's unfortunate.
If I may say, his ride is still at Disneyland, I believe. Roger Rabbit's Wild Ride is in sort of like the kid land of Disneyland.
Well, at least his legacy lives on through that. And it was indeed a clean sweep, as Keith, you had this film on your list as well.
Yes, I did. And when you actually sent out the original request for this show, as soon as it said hybrid, I didn't even need to look at anything else. I went, I mean, this could easily be Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Who Frames Roger Rabbit, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I mean, it could be 4 across. That's how good this movie is when it comes to just in general, but when it comes to this topic. I wanted to say, Grinny, you brought up the screen share time, and it was Disney agreed, because I've done so much reading on Roger Rabbit. Disney agreed to let Mickey and everybody else in it, as long as Mickey and Bugs and Donald and Daffy all shared equal screen time, which is why the only time you see any of them, it's the dueling pianos is Bugs and Daffy, and of course you know they both like kind of beat each other up, and so it's like no one wins in that matchup. And then in Bugs and Mickey, it's like, who's the smartass? It's still Bugs Bunny. It's not Mickey, but it's equal time again with the two of them. So it's just fantastic. I mean, even bringing back Betty Boop, which was kind of cool having her, and he orders the scotch on the rocks and ice, and then you see the drink come back and it is like little rocks in the cup. I mean, just the kind of the stupid shit that they pulled in that movie. Jessica Rabbit still is on people's lists of like hottest actresses in movie history. So, and of course, voiced by the sultry Kathleen Turner when she was still smoking 2 packs of Lucky Strikes a day to get that voice. But no, that's great movie, great story. Christopher Lloyd is, oh God, what an early to mid 80s that guy had. I mean, seriously, I can't listen to him and not think of just Back to the Future, Clue, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit as just 3 of the friggin' anchor movies from my childhood, and all starring Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. That dueling piano scene with Donald and Daffy is just so memorable. And then, I mean, the absolute, I remember just being absolutely freaked out after Judge Doom gets, flattened over by the steamroller, and then he uses he uses the helium to blow back up, and like his eyes pop out, and then you see him with the red eyes. It's just, just so creepy, but just so great. So
remember he's actually a tune.
Remember me, Eddie, when I killed your brother? I talked just like that. It's so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then they bring out the Frank Sinatra sword. I know. It's Frank Sinatra from the 40s. I mean, a witchcraft. I mean, the movie was on recently, but I mean, I can watch that movie anytime it comes on. But that's so, oh God, earworms. The whole movie's an earworm.
Mm-hmm. And the Weasels were the greatest henchmen ever, even though you could easily defeat them by making them laugh too hard. So, yeah. Great stuff. I mean, we could spend just an hour talking about that film. It's so good. Yeah.
Scene by scene.
All right, well, let's go ahead now move on to Grooney. Give us the next entry on your Mount Rushmore of hybrid films.
Okay, so like with what Keith said, if when the word hybrid film came in and you saw Who Framed Roger Rabbit 4 times, I had it on my list, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but this one really just popped out of my head, and that is, of course, Space Jam. You have, again, it goes back, you have the Looney Tunes, and you have the NBA's most famous player ever, of that time period, winning championship after championship after championship, Michael Jordan. So Space Jam was great. You see the Looney Tunes and how they have to battle the aliens before or as they become the Monstars. and they challenge them to a basketball game because they're so little, but they steal the NBA's talent, which is hilarious too. Patrick Ewing, Charles Barkley, and Muggsy Bogues can't play basketball because their talent got stolen to a bunch of aliens. And then, you see, it's a little, it feels like it's almost like a shoot to how terrible Michael Jordan was at baseball, because you see him outside, you see him in the live action, him after he retired the first time in basketball. And the ending is really great because they're like, welcome back, Michael Jordan. As I got older and I watched this film, I learned that it wasn't really about the Looney Tunes. While the Looney Tunes played a really great part, and me as a kid just really wanted to see the Looney Tunes, it really is all about Michael Jordan's return to basketball. And, he wins 3 more championships too. So it was just a really great film for that time period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree, and I know both Rob and Andy also had this film on their list as well. In fact, Rob, when he sent his list, and he mentioned that I guess when they were making this film, they wanted Disney to get involved in it, but they refused. So apparently they took like subtle little digs at Disney throughout the film. So I don't know if anyone ever could make out what they were, but
I could actually. He goes during when they're returning back to the golf hole. Daffy Duck goes, I got a team name, the Ducks. And
what kind of Mickey Mouse organization would name their team the Ducks?
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
And they were actually looking for Michael Jordan's lucky pants and lucky jersey from his playing days in Chapel Hill. Tar Heel in the house.
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot about that. But yeah, you're right. But yeah, I remember I used to watch this a lot when I was growing up, and like you said, even though you had the novelty of the Looney Tunes in there, it pretty much was a Michael Jordan film. I mean, he was the biggest star at that time, not just in the NBA, but perhaps in all of sports. So, I mean, to get him, to be in this film, was, a huge get. And I know they tried to replicate it, however many years later with LeBron James in the sequel. And I mean, I'm sorry, LeBron James is no Michael Jordan, and he never will be. So yeah. I think the less said about the sequel, the better. So, hence, I mean, there's a reason why. Okay.
Yeah, that's probably why it was on my honorable mention and not one of my 4. Because as good as the first movie was, and it was a really good movie with a really good soundtrack that I wore the plastic off of, Space Jam: A New Legacy, God, I wanted to forget that movie.
Yeah, I think at this point we all want to forget that movie. So,
and I feel like just one more thing too is that Space Jam made Quad City DJs famous, for their 5 minutes of fame with their 3 songs that they actually have.
Yeah, and actually also kind of underrated. Because you mentioned about all the players, but also underrated voice acting by Danny DeVito as the main villain. So I thought he did a great job as the big boss. So kudos to him for that. Keith, I know you had this on your honorable mentions.
I did, yes, and I think pretty much everything has been said about this. You actually just brought the last thing I was going to point out was Danny DeVito so good in this, and then the interesting. I guess. Well, I don't know if it would be a cameo because he has a little bit of in it, but Bill Murray showing up and doing a little ball, being a baller, which was kind of cool. So I'm sure Bill Murray was excited to be on the same court as Michael Jordan. So,
well, then of course Danny DeVito's character had the great lines like, "I didn't know Dan Aykroyd was in this picture." Oh God. Chico, you said you had this as an honorable mention. Did you have anything else to say about it?
No. All I remember is really loved this movie. One of my friends is basically he swears his life by this movie, and I will tell you right now. I'll say it again. I wore the plastic off the CD when I got it, If you are a big fan, of Diane Warren, I suggest I Turn to You by All for One. Yes, Christina Aguilera covered it. It was not an original.
That's good to know. All right, let's move on back to Keith now. Give us the next entry on your Mount Rushmore of hybrid films.
So this was a movie that was mentioned in the last list, and there's a special reason why I picked it for hybrid, and that's the Lego Movie. And I mean, obviously, I am a huge Lego fanatic. I am what's known as an AFOL. It's an adult fan of Lego. I've been a Lego fan my entire life. It's one of my passions. It's one of the few hobbies that I have been doing my entire life, and I still continue to this day. I don't even want to tell you guys how much I spend probably monthly on Legos. It's ridiculous, but this movie was fantastic. The reason why I selected it, now I was trying to go with movies for hybrids where there's some interaction between live action and animation. I get pretty close with everything, I think, all my picks. This one I went with because when Emmett the Lego hero, the protagonist of the movie, falls down the mystery shaft or whatever, and he ends up in the real world, there's a brief moment where you can see him moving while the little kid is on camera frame as well. So that's where I went with. I said, okay, it qualifies. There is live action. Will Ferrell is in it. He does live action as well as the voice of President Business. And just the movie itself is great. I mean, I think it kind of helps spawn the resurgence, I think, of Lego as an accepted form of hobby amongst adults and children alike. And it just, it spawned another sequel, a spin-off. The Lego Masters TV show is a big hit because of, I think, this movie. Obviously all the Lego video games that I would say those are separate, but overall, great movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny because I forget about that little live action scene at the those scenes at the end there, because I think I just think about it as like a straight up animated film. But Grooney, Chico, did you have anything else to say about the Lego Movie, or are we good?
I'm good.
Just really good movie. I love that. I love that movie. It would be an honorable mention for me more than an actual one of my 4 picks, simply because I love the story, but by the end you can definitely tell it's just turning into a commercial for Lego now. So
all right, well, let's go back around here to Chico. Give us the next entry on your Mount Rushmore of hybrid films.
Okay, my second entry in hybrid animation films is a Disney film that doesn't have much in the way of animation, but it has enough to qualify, and it is just so whimsical. And you wouldn't think that it would have all of this sort of whimsy attached to it, and you certainly wouldn't think that it would have enough whimsy to warrant a sequel to it. But the sequel, while not as good as the original, still pretty solid. My second pick is Mary Poppins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good pick. I've always liked Mary Poppins when I've seen it. I think Julie Andrews is great, and that's how to roll. Just her kind of coming into the picture and kind of almost like putting this family together, because they it seems like the father is so distant from his kids, and like you said, there's not a ton of animation, but you get that scene where they're at the park and they have all like the animated characters there, so it definitely merits inclusion. And then like you said, although many years later when we finally get the sequel, which I haven't got a chance to, I haven't seen yet, but I definitely want to. I've heard some pretty good things about it. I mean, just one of those classic films. When you think of Disney, that's one that that's on the top of a lot of people's lists, just for how memorable and how incredible it was. So good little pick there, Chico. Grooney, do you have anything else to say about Mary Poppins?
It's supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Very, very good, cheery movie. The nanny taking care of the kids, and then she takes them to like all these like different world, like it seems like she goes to like different worlds with them. One of the lines I remember hearing was, "I want to feed the birds." That was from Michael. A very good, cute movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Keith?
Dick Van Dyke still with us, 96 years old, still with us. I mean, that's actually, I think, as we're we're recording this, he's 96. When it airs, he'll probably be 97. So happy birthday, Dick Van Dyke. Let's hope he's still with us when this finally makes it. But I mean, I just, there was a little bit of a resurgence, I think, of Mary Poppins because of the winds in the east. Miss coming in. That was like a big meme a while ago on like TikTok, and it's friggin' Bert the street painter, I guess. No, this is a great movie. Julie Andrews is awesome. Julie Andrews is the balls. She, was she in the sequel? If she wasn't, she should have been. And that's at least.
No, she was not in the sequel. She was played by Emily Blunt.
Well, I mean, they didn't even give her like a cameo in the sequel. That's kind of dog shit, if you ask my opinion. But
well, I think she I think when she was asked about it, she said that she didn't do it because she didn't want to take any of the spotlight off of Emily Blunt. So
nah. That's what I say to that. But no, the thing I loved about Julie Andrews is, and I don't know if everybody knew, she voices the Leviathan in Aquaman. And it's like, I mean, it's like such a throwaway character, but I immediately recognized Julie Andrews when I saw Aquaman. I was like, that's fucking Julie Andrews. And I was like kind of happy that like Julie Andrews voiced something in the DCEU. I was like, yeah. So no, I mean, Mary Poppins, great movie. Julie Andrews is amazing in it, and very attractive too for the time period. As a magical, fun-loving woman who comes down on a broomstick or on an umbrella. Excuse me. She's not a witch. She's not a witch. She's a nanny. But I also love the fact that it's been spoofed so many times by so many different things. Animated and the like. So I mean, the Simpsons have done it probably 1,000 times. So spoofed something.
Good old Sari Bobbins.
Yeah, that they've spoofed from that movie. So yeah, great pick. I forgot about the little animation scene, but yeah, absolutely, very famous.
Mm-hmm. Well, nothing will beat in Guardians 2 when Yondu's coming down with his Zeri. He's like, "I'm Mary Poppins, y'all."
He is Mary Poppins, y'all. He should have been, instead of Emily Blunt, they should have had Michael Rooker. That would have been great.
that would have been interesting. All right, let's go back around to Grooney. Give us the next entry on your Mount Rushmore of hybrid films.
Okay, for this one, I found this one very funny, and I think that this one does make a hybrid film. If not, it'll be up for debate. But I picked The Mask, starring Jim Carrey. As a human, like when he's a human, without the mask on, Stanley Ipkiss is a straight up nice guy. Like he says before, nice guys finish last. He is Mr. Nice Guy, finished last. He gives up. He wants to go on a date with a girl in the first scene, but then the girl's like, "Oh, well, my friend wants to go. Like, can I go with her?" And he goes, "You know what? Just take the ticket." So Stanley is just down on his luck. Jim Carrey is down on his luck in this movie. He finds this mask, and this like magical, like mythical mask on in the like. I don't know what you want to call it, like the river, like the ocean or somewhere. And when he puts it on, he becomes like this cool cat, and very Looney Tune like, he's got the, and it seems like he's like Wile E. Coyote at times, and he doesn't get hurt under this mask, and when he gets his car back, he pulls the old Tasmanian Devil tornado, and he destroys the car place, and a little bit of Pepe Le Pew when he goes on his date with Tina, starring the very young, I believe it was her first role, Cameron Diaz, and boy, did she do a great job in that movie. And she was so pretty and so hot. And so The Mask is one of my all-time favorite hybrid movies as well. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would consider it hybrid because I mean, anytime after he puts the mask on, I mean, that's that's CGI animation basically. So I would definitely say it fits. This was pretty much right when Jim Carrey was really breaking out because I mean, this year alone he had The Mask, he had Ace Ventura, and Dumb and Dumber. So he was on a major role, and like you said, this was the first appearance of Cameron Diaz, and she definitely steals the film a lot of scenes. Peter Green was great as the villain. I thought Ben Stein as like the mask expert was a good little role there for him. And yeah, I mean, this was pretty much just a complete showcase for Jim Carrey and his comedy, and I think he definitely did a great job. Again, one of those, I think we can just not talk about the sequel because it's not worth talking about. But I think, but yeah, I think when you think of Jim Carrey's greatest best films, I know that a lot of people consider this one of them, and he does just seeing the intensity he brings into that character definitely was definitely worth a mention here. Keith, do you have anything else to say about The Mask?
It's a great movie. Yeah, this is the height of Jim Carrey's powers. No pun intended that he's kind of like got superpowers in this movie. I love the scene when he's battling the gang in the club, the Coconut Lounge Club or whatever it is, and he pulls out he does the Oscar scene, which is great, and then everything about this is fantastic. Yeah.
Hey Keith, I got 2 tickets to the Coco Bongo tonight.
Coco Bongo, yeah, Coco Bongo, that's
right. Chico?
Great movie. Again, this is the height of Jim Carrey as one of the 90s' most bakeable stars. I didn't really think much of it as a hybrid animated film, because for one, I'm obtuse, and for another, it was just pretty much limited to his character and his character only. But it is a really good film, and that's a really good pick.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let's go back around to Keith. Give us the next entry on your Mount Rushmore of hybrid films.
So this is kind of I feel like this is one of those picks that no one's going to remember or think of, if that. And this is James and the Giant Peach. It's a Disney movie, or at least Disney presented it, but it's produced partly by Tim Burton, so it's got a lot of that Tim Burton-esque style to it. It's a hybrid. There's one scene in particular where James is crawling into the giant peach, because obviously the movie starts off as live action, with, all the characters there. And then the peach gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then at one point he goes into the peach. And as he's crawling into the center of the peach, he slowly starts to turn from a live action into an animated character. And it's a great story. I mean, Roald Dahl wrote the book. I think all of us grew up probably reading Roald Dahl's books. At least I would hope that we did, because he was incredible child writer, author. So, but I remember going to see this in the movie theater because I was, big fan of the book when I was a kid, and being, pretty impressed by it. Like I said, it had a lot of that Tim Burton feel. So you could see elements of things that happened in Nightmare Before Christmas, and obviously just some of the other stuff that he had done. He hadn't done Corpse Bride, or I don't think he had done Nightmare Before Christmas yet. So it all kind of came out. He had done Nightmare Before Christmas, but Corpse Bride hadn't come out yet, so you got to see kind of things like that. So yeah, no, it's one of my favorites, and fits this category. And like I said, I kind of feel like it's a good sleeper hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. I remember watching this film when I was growing up, and yeah, it was a really good film. Just kind of going back to that unique style of stop motion animation. Very reminiscent, like you said, of Nightmare Before Christmas. Obviously, with Tim Burton involved, not a surprise there. And yeah, just such, just the fact that at the end there when they arrive in New York and the peach is on the Empire State Building, and you have like these, it's all live action, but then when all the animals show back up again, they're still animated.
Yes.
It's such a really fun scene, and yeah, I feel like this movie doesn't get talked a lot about in terms of Roald Dahl adaptations.
They're always remaking friggin' Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's like do another one of these,
Right.
Make the twits. There's so much other shit that Roald Dahl wrote. Like, make another one of those. It's not just all Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Right, and I do feel like this is kind of an underrated film, and definitely one I think you should go back and definitely watch, because I think it is a really great film. Chico, do you have anything else to say about James and the Giant Peach?
Not really. I've never seen it, believe it or not. Yeah.
Okay, Grooney?
I have seen it, bits and pieces. I like that he finally gets to the city. That's where he wanted to be. How many parents do you know how many kids do you know whose parents were eaten by a giant rhinoceros? Like, what? And then the rhino came and ate my parents. That's pretty crazy, but okay. But yeah, it's a good movie.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I will go ahead and give another one of Andy's picks here, and he has probably one of the more, I think the most recent film that any of us have on our lists, and that is Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers. This, of course, was the film that came out earlier this year, the kind of reboot and sequel to the TV series that sees Chip and Dale have a falling out, and they eventually get back together. And there's a lot of inside humor with it in terms of some of the characters that we see throughout the film. It's not one I've had a chance to see yet. I definitely, I do want to. I know I've heard a lot of really good things about it. A lot of people, I've seen a lot of really good reviews of it, saying it's a nice little nod to Disney and to the fact that they, make fun of themselves and some of the, the inside references that they make. The fact that that one of, I think it's Chip that's the like fully animated, and Dale's the live, the CGI animated. I think is a pretty interesting twist they took on it. So yeah, I think it's definitely one that I definitely am looking forward to actually seeing, and because I do remember the TV show in the 90s and watching a few episodes of it. So definitely one I think deserves a mention on here. I'm glad Andy did mention it. Chico, do you have anything to say about Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers?
I finally saw it the other week. It was amazing. It was so amazing. I don't know why I waited so long to see it. My guess is, again, 40-something children in disguise. What can I say? But yeah, it's just a really solid movie with enough nods to Disney folklore and the show itself to be really, really interesting for people who grew up on it. So yeah, it was really good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gurney?
I saw it, but it's been a while since I've seen it. I thought it was, but the one thing I remember was, I think it was at one of those autograph, it was at the autograph session. They had the crappy Sonic there, the one that didn't make it because fans backlashed the drawing of that, so they made they had to make the new one make it more reasonable. So they did that, and they had the crappy Sonic in the at like the autograph session trying to sign autographs. That is what I remember from that film. Chico, you know what I'm talking about, right?
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
And I thought that was so hilarious. I cracked up so hard at that because I was like, oh, this is hilarious. They're making fun of him.
Oh, that's funny. Keith, do you have anything else to say about Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers?
I feel like I mean, it seems like I know Kiva directed it, and it's got Andy Samberg, so I'm wondering if there's a lot of influence of Lonely Island in this, which I'm sure there is. Plus, it's John Mulaney. Yeah, I just looked up and I saw that it's on Disney Plus, so I'm gonna be putting this on the short list to watch. I might actually watch it like tomorrow, actually, just because basically off of Chico's recommendation that it's fantastic. So.
Okay, well, I will go ahead and give another one of Rob's picks here, and this is one that up until a few months ago I never even heard of, but one that definitely merits inclusion at least on the list here, and that's Cool World. Obviously, kind of one of the animated films that's like garnered exclusively towards adults. You have this cartoonist who ends up going into his own cartoon world where he meets up with his main character Holly, who aspires to get out into the real world as a real person. Really great casting. You got Kim Basinger, who was at her peak. Brad Pitt, who was really kind of coming into his own. Gabriel Byron. Really, I mean, the animation itself is really out there and crazy, but it's definitely I know when it came out it did not do very well, and it's many consider it one of the worst films ever made, even though it has become it's kind of become a cult classic, but definitely a very kind of unique take on a live action animation hybrid, so I get why Rob put it on his list, and Chico, you had it on your list as well.
Yeah, I had it on my list. It was basically one of those movies that basically was way ahead of its time, because this was like in 1992, where everybody was still thinking, Simpsons aside, that cartoons are for kids. I mean, the last sort of animated movie for adults was Heavy Metal, and nobody remembers that. But yeah, it was basically, okay, let's do Roger Rabbit, but let's do it for adults. And it told a really good story. And yes, the sort of production was just really beleaguered, but ultimately I thought it made a really good quality product that became a cult classic over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gurney, do you have anything else to say about Cool World?
I've only seen it one time, and that was on one of our Saturday night calls where we would watch a movie together, and I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, that's definitely one way to put it, especially with the crew we had watching it.
Yeah.
Keith, do you have anything else to say about Cool World?
This was on the list of, this was on the short list of the movies. It had been, I think I had seen it like once. It was years ago, probably when it, right after it had first come out. I do remember it being very much like, yeah, it's an adult movie and you're not supposed to be going to see it. It's PG-13, but I mean, the main female character that's dressed up, I believe, is Kim Basinger. So, and she's very Jessica Rabbit-esque, let's put it that way. But I mean, starring a young Brad Pitt, that's kind of cool, So Brad Pitt making waves in that movie.
Well, he was just a year removed from Thelma and Louise, so he was, like I said, he was starting to get his feet wet. So, all right,
I had one thing. I'm sorry. One last thing I want to mention though is that, and I think that with all these movies, whether the hybrid or the actual animation and stuff, we talked a lot about the voice actors that are, I guess you could say, for lack of a better word, like celebrity voice actors. And I mean, especially in Cool World, Maurice LaMarche, who is known best for Animaniacs, Pinky and the Brain. He's like an industry legend, and he's in that. He was in, I want to say he did voices in pretty much all the other ones we had talked about too, like Space Jam. I know Billy West is in Space Jam. Billy West picked up pretty much right after like Mel Blanc had passed away. Like Warner Brothers got Billy West in to do like Bugs Bunny and a lot of those characters. So just one of the things that, looking at all of these movies in general, I just would be remiss if I didn't say, much props to the industry standard voice actors, who are a lot of times like they're the unsung heroes of any animated movie or any animated show or anything of that nature. And it's great. It's like there's a great movie out, like, I know that guy from, or you're that guy who's in, and it's just a lot of times like you see them and you go, yeah, I know that guy, I know that voice, I know what that is. So I wanted to throw that out there, like, because I know I saw Maurice LaMarche in Cool World, and I was like, oh, let me make sure to say that now. It just kind of popped in my head. So
Mm-hmm. No, you're definitely right, and I think I don't think those voice actors get sometimes don't get enough credit for the amount of work that they put into, because you do forget they're in a ton of those films, even if it's just as background players, they definitely put all the work in. So definitely so major kudos to them to to do that. So I am glad you mentioned that.
I mean, I know I mentioned Hank Azaria, but like Hank Azaria and Harry Shearer voice like 90% of the people on The Simpsons, but they don't, and they get credit for that. They do, but I mean, I feel like people talk about Nancy Cartwright, Dan Castellaneta, and Yeardley Smith, and just because they voiced the main cast. But man, if that show would not be around if it wasn't for Hank Azaria and Harry Shearer, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. All right, well, Chico, you have one entry left on your Mount Rushmore, so why don't you go ahead and give it to us?
All right, my final entry on my hybrid Mount Rushmore is it's one of the most understated hybrids out there, but I remember watching it as a kid and I was just sort of taken back by it, and it's the 1977 version of Pete's Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like one of those movies where it's like, okay, everybody's looking at this dragon, and apparently he's there, and next thing you know, he's not, and it's pretty cool, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, this was, even though the only animated thing in the movie is the dragon, but it's it's such a really fun movie. I mean, you got Helen Reddy, Mickey Rooney, Red Buttons, Shelley Winters. Again, a really good cast of people involved. There's some really good songs in it, and just all the you do feel bad for Elliot because he's like trying to fit in with this town, and Pete and Pete just keeps causing so much trouble. That causes him to to get into trouble. I have seen this obviously a few times. I don't think I've seen the remake from 2016. I know that one has gotten good reviews, and many say it's a good faithful remake of this original one. So it is again on my short list. But I think when you ask a lot of people about the film, they'll probably just mention the original to begin with. I know Andy had it as one of his honorable mentions as well. Grooney, do you have anything to say about Pete's Dragon?
No, because this is one that I have not seen.
Okay, Keith?
I mean, Helen Reddy and Red Buttons, those were two of the people that went to attack the Death Star in the Star Wars. And it's Family Guy style. Red Buttons standing by. Helen Reddy standing by. Simply Red standing by. Red October standing by. So, that's a great scene in anime. Speaking of animation, no, Pete's Dragon's great. Is that a Disney? That is a Disney. Yeah, that is. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's a great movie. I never saw the remake too. You know what? I forgot that they did a remake of that. So I feel like that should be a watch party.
Yeah. Big Red standing by. That's
Big
my
Red
favorite.
standing.
Yeah, the fact that the actual stick of gum.
Yeah. Red Button standing by. I just love that freaking scene. Helen Reddy, like nobody knows who fucking Helen Reddy is.
Shame. Anyway.
Okay, well, I will go ahead and give Rob's last pick here, and this is another one that I'm not entirely familiar with. Kind of another one of the older films that we've talked about here, but he went with The Incredible Mr. Limpet. Again, not one I'm too familiar with. I know, again, Warner Brothers had a hand in doing the animations. You have Don Knotts as the main character. Again, another stacked cast: Carol Cook, Jack Weston, Andrew Duggan. Again, one I'm not too entirely familiar with. I'm going to have to go back and take a look at it. But I know this one definitely. This one also kind of was considered a very very popular around its time. I know Andy had it as one of his honorable mentions, and Keith, you had it as an honorable mention as well.
I did, yes. I put this on as an honorable mention because is this like the first hybrid? It can't be the first hybrid, but because I'm trying to. I mean, I don't want to mention Song of the South, but I'm trying to think. Was Song of the South, was that before? I mean, this is 1964. Yeah, Song of the South was 46. Okay, so yeah, so this is not the first, but that's one of the reasons why I put it on there. I mean, it's Don Knotts. I mean, Don Knotts is fantastic. I mean, the guy's he's making out with a fish here in this movie. So I mean, he's making out with an animated fish. So. End of story.
That's not awkward.
Well, there were actually a few others before, even before Song of the South, which I might talk about here in a second. But Chico, do you have anything else to say about The Incredible Mr. Limpet?
Only that all I remember was the box art with fish and Don Knotts.
Hey, Gurney?
Now I don't have anything to say on this film.
Okay. Well, Gurney, you do have one entry left on your Mount Rushmore, so go ahead and give it to us.
So this is one that probably flew under a lot of people's radar, but I believe this was one that I rented as a kid at the movie at the video store. And that is the Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle. Yeah, I enjoyed this one. It's it's Rocky and Bullwinkle coming into the real world when Boris, Natasha, and crap, who's the main guy's name? What's the main leader? Fearless Leader, when they come out and they try to take over the real world. It's Robert De Niro as Fearless Leader, and it's Jason Alexander as Boris. It was really goofy, but very, very funny. And Randy Quaid's in the movie. John Goodman's in the movie. Whoopi Goldberg has a cameo as the judge. It's all about Rocky and Bullwinkle saving the real world when they get taken out of the animated films and they're brought into the real world. The narrator comes with them and he leaves his mother's house. which is very funny as well. Even Keenan Thompson and Keenan and Kel have a cameo in it too. So very good cameos and just a funny family movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have a lot of memories about this film. I remember obviously watching the cartoon briefly. But yeah, I mean, you talk about a stacked cast. I mean, like you said, Robert De Niro, Jason Alexander. You had Rene Russo as Natasha, and then like you said, Randy Quaid, John Goodman, Carl Reiner, Jonathan Winters, Janine Garofalo. I mean, you're talking about who's who of the time, and the fact that they had Keith Scott and June Foray as Bullwinkle and Rocky, when they considering they had voiced them back in the original cartoon. It's funny you talk about we mentioned Mel Blanc a few times, but June Foray was basically like the female equivalent of him. Mm-hmm. So you have that, and then even a very, very young Taraji P. Henson in one of her first films, in a kind of a lower end role here. So. Yeah, not one. Again, one I don't personally recall seeing, but definitely one that at least merits mention here. So I'm glad you did mention it, Grooney. Keith, do you have anything to say about the Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle?
Oscar-winning Robert De Niro starring in this movie, along with the incomparable Piper Perabo, and that's obviously in jest. I mean, this movie's bad. I mean, it's bad. It's fun, but it's bad. But I will say that I'm sure this is one of those movies that De Niro goes, yeah, this movie bought my car, or this movie bought the house, or whatever. So it's Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Do you think which film do you think he regrets more? This? Oh no, never mind. I was thinking that's Al Pacino that was in Jack and Jill. Never mind.
I think De Niro regrets Jack and Jill probably just as much as Rocky and Bullwinkle that he passed that one up.
Oh God, Chico, what do you have anything else to say about Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle?
What's up? That's the only thing I remember about it.
Okay, well, I will go ahead and give Andy's last pick here, and we are going to go back into the 70s with his last film, and that's Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Of course, you had the great Angela Lansbury, the late great Angela Lansbury as Eglantine Price, as she studies to become a witch, as she studies up under Mr. Brown, and of course you have the when they are going into the storybook, and they end up in the the Kingdom of Naboombu, and that leads to this really crazy soccer matchup where Mr. Brown has to be the referee, and he just takes an absolute beating in the game. Just again another fun film that Disney did, kind of the same vein as Mary Poppins. Maybe not on the same level as Mary Poppins, but it's definitely one that's really memorable, and one of I think when you think of Angela Lansbury, this is one of the ones you think of. Chico, do you have anything to say about Bedknobs and Broomsticks?
Only that Angela Lansbury was spectacular in it, and actually, Angela Lansbury never spectacular in anything?
No, she's fantastic in everything she does. Or did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Gurney?
Yeah, this one does not ring a bell to me either.
Okay. Keith?
This is one of those, you hit the nail on the head when you said this is a very, in kind of the same vein as like Mary Poppins. Roddy McDowall. I love Roddy McDowall and everything he's in. This is a great movie altogether. One of the things, there's a story going around recently, I'm sure it's been around before that, about Angela Lansbury that I just think is so baller, is that she was upset that her daughter was like a teenager hanging out with like this kind of a loser guy, and he was starting to like persuade her to drink, and so she didn't want her daughter to fall in with the wrong crowd, so she moved them all, I think, to either like Ireland or England or wherever the hell she ended up moving the whole family back. And then you come to find out that the guy that her son was hanging around with was Charles Manson. It's just like, it's the coolest story. It's like Angela Lansbury's like, oh, fuck that guy. And then she just took the whole family and moved across the sea. But yeah, no, Angela Lansbury just recently leaving us. So R.I.P.
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously she was proven right, given given Manson's history or what happened with Manson. So smart move on her part. All right, well, Keith, you're the only one that has anything left on your Mount Rushmore, so why don't you go ahead and give us your last entry?
So I was thinking, I know earlier I had kind of commented that, the CGI animation stuff is not always my favorite cup of tea when it comes to that, but this one I think fit it, and it's Ready Player One from 2018, mostly because it's a Spielberg movie, and it's a great story, great book, fantastic. I think just in general, the sequences of the hybrid with when they're just going through trying to find the keys and just the lifelike avatars that they have for the players in the game. And then how one of the things I really liked is afterwards, in like the second half of the movie, when you have what's her name, Olivia Cook, her character has, she has like the port wine stain of the facial mark on her and her real life counterpart, and then when she goes back in as Artemis, it has the birthmark, and I always thought that was kind of cool. Like her second iteration of her character, she has the birthmark that she was so embarrassed of in real life, and it's after she meets Parzival in the real world, and he says, no, I want you to, you look beautiful with it or whatever. And but it's great. And then I love how towards the end of the movie you have that whole sequence with Mark Rylance, who is Anurok, and he comes in and he's the real character, and it's just it's a great movie. It's I love the whole Stephen King sequence where they go to see The Shining, and they play like the Shining game. So yeah, just great movie overall, fun time. I could put that in any day and watch it and be totally satisfied with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember when this film came out and how everyone was kind of was definitely hyped about it. And it's kind of crazy the idea that this was set in 2045, and yet here we are in 2022, and we don't seem that far off from from this actually being in real life, because it seems like a lot more people are just more interested in being in like a virtual reality than in the real world. So I don't remember seeing this one when it was in theaters. It was another one I missed, but it's definitely one I've always kind of wanted to kind of go back and see, but just never had a chance to. But I think I definitely want to try to at some point. Chico, do you have anything else to say about Ready Player One?
Oh my god, that is like a pop culture time capsule. I remember watching it in the theater and was just blown away, like by not just the story and not just the spectacle, but things I can remember and things I can relate to. The scene where he's literally going through adventure looking for the final key is just I literally had a nerdgasm just then, And the room falls silent.
Yeah, what happened? Did we lose anybody? Did we lose Steven? I think we might have lost Steven.
Oh, gee.
We lost the moderator. Well, I'll pick it up. Bruni, anything to say about Ready Player One?
No, I really don't have anything to say about Ready Player One.
Okay.
All right, so Ready Player One, my sister and I saw it in the theater, and we were just in awe about not just the story or the spectacle, but how relatable it was. I mean, like at the end where it all came down to a round of Atari's adventure to find the final key to basically resolve the plot. It was just absolutely amazing. I really loved this movie. I didn't even think about it as a hybrid animation film. I just thought it was a really good movie, and I guess that's the hallmark of this whole thing.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Gurney?
I didn't see this one as well, so I have to go back and watch this film for the first time.
Okay. Well, that will conclude everybody's list here. So let's go ahead and now just briefly touch on some honorable mentions. Andy had a few. He also, as I mentioned, he had The Incredible Mr. Limpet and Pete's Dragon. The other one he had that we haven't mentioned yet was The Three Caballeros. Of course, the one of the package films that Disney did in the 40s. Of course, you have Donald celebrating his birthday along with Jose and Panchito, and of course the thing that's I remember most. I mean, you have obviously the different cultures showing out their their different cultures. Some great musical numbers in it. Of course, Donald spending most of the film chasing all the women, as he do. But definitely one of the better package films I think that they did during that time frame. So I see why Andy put it on his list. Chico, did you have any other honorable mentions that we haven't talked about yet?
Talked about Space Jam, talked about the Lego Movie, talked about Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers, and those were my 3 honorable mentions. So yeah.
Okay, Gurney?
One that I remember watching on VHS a lot. And this is probably a bad hybrid film, but I thought it was kind of funny and weird. That Albert, they made a hybrid one out of that one, starring Kenan Thompson. He gets sucked out of the TV to go help Kyla Pratt with her problem, and they're starting to disappear because their colors of their clothes are starting to disappear, so they have to get back into the TV. And the funniest part was Mushmouth. He starts talking normal, and you can actually hear him. So it's oh, we got to get back in the TV. So yeah, Fat Albert was on a honorable mention for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Keith.
No, we had mentioned my honorable mentions that I had, so no other ones for me.
Okay, I did have a few other ones I wanted to just briefly touch on. When you think, more Disney films, obviously Fantasia, the original and the sequel, mixing the animation with the intersplicing of the orchestra and all that stuff, I think is really good. I'm not sure if this qualifies, but I figured, but I think it comes close, kind of to the similar vein of Ready Player One. That's Tron. Seeing this, them go into a video game or a computer program basically was really so revolutionary for the time. Tron Legacy, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people just remember
not a bad movie.
Original.
Not a bad movie.
Yeah. And then the other one I had was a film that I actually another kind of Disney film that kind of pokes fun at its own history, and that's Enchanted. I thought, Amy Adams was, incredible as Giselle. Some again great character work in there, and I know the sequel just came out not that recently, Disenchanted. Yeah. So I haven't had a chance to see that yet, but I'm interested to see how that holds up. So there you go. That will go ahead and wrap up our show for this evening. Great job, gentlemen. We touched on a lot of great films, both normal animation and hybrid. And I'm sure this is bound to spark some good debate within our Facebook page, which we obviously always welcome. But right now, let's go ahead and talk about where we can be found on social media and any other podcasts we may have going on. So, Keith, we'll start with you.
So you can always catch me on Greetings from Allentown, GFA Live. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, I think. Wherever you can catch your podcasts. That's Pete and I do that show. And pretty much, as you had said at the beginning, Steve, I'm starting to really get out there. What I would recommend for anybody is either check out my Twitter, it's Flounder824, or just check out my Facebook page. I'm terrible with plugs at this point for my own stuff, but I do put, or at least saying them on shows, but I do put them out there. So on social media. So check out my social media. And thank you for letting me do this today. I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Of course, definitely. Gruny?
Like Steve mentioned in the beginning, me and Steve, I host Extreme Resurrection on the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, along with Steve. We're covering ECW on Sci-Fi in 2006 until 2010. We're heading into the road to WrestleMania 23. As we all know, Bobby Lashley is going to be taking part in the Battle of the Billionaires. Donald Trump versus Vince McMahon, and the ECW Originals will be taking on the New Breed. So we're focusing on those two main story feuds, covering ECW on Sci-Fi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been interesting going back and watching that TV. A lot of stuff I did not remember at all, and I watched regularly during that time. So it's a lot of fun. Chico?
Did we lose Chico now?
No, I was just on mute, and I forgot that I was on mute. So yeah, it was a thing on TV. Every new episodes every Monday and Thursday with myself, Mike Klaus, and Greg Diener. We're on all social media at It Was a Thing on TV. We're available on It Was a Thing on TV, and we are available on itwasathingontv.com and wherever fine podcasts can be streamed. Remember, like, subscribe, rate, review, 5 stars only, because positive vibes only. And it was a pleasure being on this show. I had a lot of fun here.
Oh yeah, it definitely was a lot of fun. I know that Rob, I don't think has any pods, unfortunately. I think he's just been a guest on this one so far. But Andy, of course, is the head of the pop feed over here. He has a lot of great shows going on. Not just this one. Pop Goes the Classics, the most sensational, inspirational, celebrational, Muppetational podcast that he and Miranda do, where they talk the Muppet Show. He also has Blockbuster Rewind and Laugh in Theater. So lots of great stuff he has going on. I know he's got some other stuff planned in the works. So be sure to follow him on that. As for me, besides this show, I, of course, have Pop Goes the Classics with Andy and Miranda, where we are going through all the Disney animated films. We are on a little bit of a hiatus here as we come to the end of the year, but we will start 2023 hard and heavy with Hercules. Looking forward to getting to that film as we kind of hit the tail end of the Disney Renaissance. I also am part of the Video Jukebox Song of the Day that's here on the pop feed every Monday through Friday. Basically, myself, Keith, Andy, a couple of other voices, we basically just watch a music video and just talk about it. It's a quick, easy podcast to get your morning started. We have a lot of great theme weeks. Just recently we did songs from the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtracks, which was a lot of fun. And, of course, as we get closer to Christmas, we'll be doing a Christmas theme week. Looking forward to that. So be sure to follow us, not just here on the pop feed, but as well as the wrestling feed, the North-South Connection feed, and the Jenny Position feed. And also be sure to follow us on Stream Lounge. Lots of great things going on there. I know Andy is going through his watching of all the MCU films on there for a Blockbuster rewatch, as well as all the Pixar films for Laugh in Theater. And, of course, now with Peacock having just been added to Stream Lounge, you can expect a lot of wrestling content to come down the pike on there. So be sure to follow all of us on that as well. You can also find me over on the PTP Facebook page. Lots of great discussions going on over there. I know when we get to next year, we should have a new tournament coming up shortly, so just be on the lookout for that. And with that, I will go ahead and say thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. Like you said, it has been a lot of fun, and it's always great to talk about some great stuff here on this podcast. And I look forward to seeing what the new year has in store for us. So, for Keith Langston, James Gruenberg, Chico Alexander, Rob Kilner, and Andy Atherton, I am Steve Riddle. This has been Making Mount Rushmore here on the PTB Pop Experience, and we will see you in 2023.